الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد. الحمد لله خالق الوجود من العدم وجاعل النور من الظلم ومخرج الصبر من الألم وملقي التوبة على الندم، فنشكره على المصائب كما نشكره على النعم، ونصلي على رسوله الأكرم بالشرف الأشم والنور الأتم والكتاب المحكم وكمال النبيين والخاتم، سيد ولد آدم الذي بشر به عيسى بن مريم ودعا لبعثته إبراهيم عليه السلام حين كان يرفع قواعد بيت الله المحرم، فصلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى أتباعه خير الأمم الذين بارك الله بهم كافة الناس العرب منهم والعجم. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل وكبره تكبيرا. والحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد. الحمد لله الذي نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا، من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله أرسله الله تعالى بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا، فصلى الله عليه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وإن كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الكريم بعد أن أقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. Today is a very different kind of Eid than the ones we're used to. So long as I can remember, a big part of the identity of the Muslim, at least for me, myself personally, and for pretty much all of you that have been Muslim, or if you've been Muslim for several years, the Eid prayer has been a part of your memory for those many years. That's the largest gathering of the Muslims, and it's a time where we feel connected as an ummah. And the message, of Eid and the kind of celebrations that follow after that is family getting together, friends getting together. Basically, it's a social event. And it's a social event where we celebrate the completion of the Quran and the revelation of the Quran together. And obviously that's the time, usually when I give a khutbah at the occasion of Eid, my advice happens to be about when families get together, usually there are some kinds of interesting experiences, right? So a lot of times when people get together that don't see each other for a long time, there can be different kinds of fights and drama and all that other sort of stuff. And we're coming out of the month of Ramadan where the shayateen are chained and the shayateen just got unleashed. The devils got unleashed, and now you've got family in front of you, so they're easy targets for fights and all kinds of conflicts to happen. But we find ourselves in a very different circumstance this year. So we're not going to be able to have the kind of social gatherings that we used to have in the past. And for many of us, we're more isolated this time than perhaps we ever were in our lives. And so what is it that we can take at the end of this month of Ramadan? As many of, I'm here giving this khutbah primarily to some friends and family, and primarily to a camera, and many of you that are watching at home are watching from your homes, and Eid is being celebrated inside of the home. So how is it that we can make the most of this Eid and take from Ramadan, really, what is it that we're supposed to be celebrating? And every time Allah Azza wa Jalla closes one door, He opens others. And that's just the reality of life, right? So the fact that we aren't able to do what we were normally able to do also means that a lot of things that were preoccupying my time and your time have disappeared. And some things that never used to get our time and attention are now right before us. There are lots of studies right now about people cooped up at home with their kids, and they haven't spent a lot of time with their kids at all forever because the kids are always at school and they're always working. And by the time everybody gets home, your kids are doing the homework, parents are just gonna eat something, watch a little TV or something, and maybe have 10-15 minutes of interaction with each other. How was your day? It was okay. Okay, good. And that's the end of it. There's not that much interaction. And then even if you have weekend together, well, you don't want to stay cooped up, so you go out and let the kids run around in a park or something like that. All of that stuff is gone, so people are now stuck at home with a bunch of kids, and kids have endless energy, and we have only so much, patience, and eventually things start coming to a boil, right? And things start becoming very tense inside homes. People can start going crazy, living inside the home. And so we're thinking of creative ways to keep our kids busy and keep ourselves busy. One of the things that I feel is a golden opportunity. The humanity was unaware of the word of Allah. And it was like a night that fell over the entire earth. And then Allah sent His light. Allah sent the word of Allah, the nur. فَآمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَالنُّورِ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ. Allah sent this light to illuminate the world and to teach us something we could never have known before. وَيُعَلِّمُكُم مَّا لَمْ تَكُونُوا تَعْلَمُونَ. He's teaching you something you couldn't possibly know yourselves. There was no way for us to know the word of Allah ourselves. And now we have the kind of time and the kind of freedom of mind to actually begin to learn the word of Allah ourselves and actually start to teach the word of Allah to our children too. And to actually learn as a family. Now, how often did we get an opportunity and have the kind of time where we can actually make a schedule and start learning Allah's word as a family? We didn't have that opportunity before. If we did, we didn't take advantage of it. But now might be a good opportunity for us to think, just like we have time for dinner, and just like we have time for now lunch, that Ramadan is over, we have time for lunch, we have time for other things. Maybe there needs to be a scheduled time where we sit together as a family and come up with some kind of a program where we can do something as a family and learn the word of Allah together. Learn something about our Prophet ﷺ together. And even if it's a little bit every day, it can go a pretty long way. It can actually be pretty profound that a family takes advantage of this kind of opportunity and gets together and just learns something together as a family. And you know what? A lot of times parents, many of you that are watching, you don't know much either. So how are we going to teach our kids if we don't know much ourselves? And that's not a criticism of you. That's just reality, right? And it's okay for you to be fellow students along with your children. Actually, that's even better. Because many of you may not be very good teachers, and that's okay. Not everybody's born to be a teacher. So if you're not good at teaching, then maybe you can be a fellow student along with your kids, along with your family that you're cooped up with anyway. Maybe listen to something beneficial, learn something beneficial, take a course, take a class, read a book, whatever it is, discuss it with each other, so that you're all learning and growing together. And that creates a different kind of bond inside the family. Obviously, we can bond over food, we can bond over a movie or games or something like that, but how awesome would it be if we can start bonding over something we learned about our Prophet ﷺ? What did you think about this hadith? What did you think about this story? What did you think about the surah? When you were reading about it, what questions did you have? And as you develop those questions, you will learn that you don't have all the answers, and I don't have all the answers. So we're going to become seekers. We're going to look, and alhamdulillah, we're living in the internet age where we can seek answers. We can ask people. We can't say we were studying this, or we were looking at this and we couldn't figure it out, and now let's seek out the answer. Let's listen to a lecture about it, or let's watch a video about it, or let's read a book about it. So it's going to open up your minds and really have you contemplate the word of Allah and this beautiful deen in ways maybe you didn't have a chance to do before. You know, one thing that this strange new world, this COVID-19 world, has opened up for us is we used to depend on someone else to teach our kids religion. Right? Someone else is going to teach them Quran, and someone else is going to teach them Sirah or Tafsir or something else. We're going to put them in some kind of weekend school or Islamic school. It was somebody else's job. And now Allah has given us a pretty amazing reminder that actually it's nobody else's job, it's my own job. It's actually nobody else can do that job like I can. Think about the earliest Muslims who took Shahada from the Prophet ﷺ or took Shahada from a Sahabi, the Tabi'een. They became Muslim and then they went back to their village. Right? They didn't go back to an Islamic school or an Islamic university where they got a ijazah in hadith or nothing. Whatever little they knew, what did they go back and do? Whatever little they knew, they shared with their family. They shared with their friends. And they tried to learn some more and share some more. That's how the process of this religion began, right? It wasn't complicated to begin with. So don't overcomplicate it for yourselves. Don't think of this as something that's burdensome. It can be something very beautiful and very easy to do. And it can maybe, hopefully, create, you'd be surprised, because when you start sharing things like that and talking with your children about these kinds of things, usually you hear them talk about, video games or characters or movies or TV shows or whatever, and you know how into it they are. But when you start talking about your Prophet, ﷺ, or you start talking about a surah of the Quran, or you start talking about Allah, you'll hear things come out of their mouth and you'll be like, really? That goes on in your head too? You have these thoughts also? You'd be surprised how thoughtful our kids are. How much they have inside them, how inquisitive they are, but we never had those kinds of conversations. So instead of, and that's the last thing I'll share with you as advice in this khutbah, for myself and all of you, not so much that we're giving a lecture or teaching a class when we're sitting together. We're learning from somewhere and we're having conversations. We're getting them to open up and really ask their questions and understand where they're coming from. And if we can create that process, maybe this becomes a huge blessing, because some of those conversations can be the anchor that holds them to their religion 20 years from now. Right? You might think it was just a conversation I had with my kid who was 8 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, whatever age, and you don't know what a pillar that becomes in their personality. 20 years down the road, my mom once said to me, my dad once said to me, and I learned this ayah sitting with my father or sitting with my mother. We were sitting together as a family, and my brother and I were thinking about this ayah together. Those memories can save somebody's life. They can be so transformative. I'll leave you with this thought, because I recited this last ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah because Allah says Allah does not place a burden on anybody except that they can bear it. إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا, except to their capacity. So this is not something that should overwhelm us. I'll leave you with one story that really moved me, one event that happened in my life that actually happened here in Dallas. I was giving a tafsir halaqah, and I was getting ready to start my lecture, and I was about a half hour early, which is not normal for me, but I was half hour early at the masjid. Just sitting there getting my notes together, and this fellow walked in, and he's sitting there, and he's kind of looking around like he doesn't belong, or he's weirded out, and he's kind of thinking, somebody's going to say something to me. So I noticed that he's not comfortable. So I went up to him and asked him what's going on. He said, "This is my first time here in 25 years, inside a mosque." And I was like, "Wow, well, I'm glad you came." And he said, "I just need to talk to somebody." I was like, "Well, I have a few minutes. You want to sit and talk?" So we sat and talked, right? This fellow lives here somewhere in DFW, and his family and he moved from their home country. Originally Muslim, but lost Islam maybe early on in the grandfather's generation. Started losing Islam. So they had Islam by name. Yeah? So when they came here, they got into the liquor business. So he and his brothers all own bars. Okay, so each one of them owns a bar in different parts of the land. Very successful. Okay? And this fellow, and where they come from, even though they're Muslim, drinking alcohol is part of every gathering. Every time the family gets together, beers are getting popped, and that's just how they are. That's just normal for them. Okay? And he has this thought one time that something's wrong with all of this. I'm not comfortable with this business anymore. So he pulls out of the liquor business, of the bar business, and his brothers lose it. They completely, and why are you doing this? Why are you acting in this way? You know what he said to them? He said, "I remember that one time before our dad passed away, he took me to a mosque. He took me to and he doesn't even remember it's called a masjid. So he's calling it a mosque, right? So he took me to a mosque, and there were a bunch of people there, and it felt really good. And I haven't felt like that ever since." And I asked him, "So you remember that, and you told that to your brothers?" He's like, "Yeah. Because my dad passed away a long time ago." So I was like, "So how old were you when your dad took you to that mosque, that memory of yours?" And he's like, "Oh, I think I was 9. I was 8 or 9 years old." 9 years old. He's a 40-year-old guy. So 31 years later, there's a memory, a small memory of something his father did with him that pulled him out of the liquor business, and his family's disowning him. He doesn't know where to go, and he's like, "I should go where dad took me." And he comes to the masjid. SubhanAllah. We underestimate the experiences we have with our kids. We underestimate the words we share with our children. So we should put a lot of emphasis on that. We should be sensitive to the kinds of words we use with each other. If the Prophet ﷺ said that the best of you are the best to your families, خيركم خيركم لأهله. The best of you is the one who's best to his or her family. وأنا خير منكم لأهلي, and I'm the best among you to my family. If we're going to learn from the Prophet's example, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then the thing is, when we meet strangers, we meet them with a smile. We're courteous, we're respectful. We don't talk down to anybody. We're not sarcastic with anybody, aggressive with anybody. And then the worst of us comes out when we're home. Like we're like a different person. And people on the outside who know us to be really nice and kind and courteous, they wouldn't believe that that's the same person who's at home. And the Prophet ﷺ is painting the opposite picture. He's teaching us the best of you are the ones that are the best to their families. Like it's easy to be good to a stranger. It's easy to be respectful to somebody else. But it's, our real test is going to be what's happening at home. And we have an opportunity before we come back as communities. And inshallah ta'ala, one day this disease, this spread will be over. This fitna will end whenever Allah decides it to end. And whenever this comes back, we're going to gather together as communities again. But maybe in Allah's wisdom, before we get together as communities, this is a time where we should become better families, stronger families. So when stronger families come back together, they're going to be stronger communities. Right? Because the building block of a community is families. And right now, if we're not getting to do things as a community, maybe all of our emphasis needs to be on the family. That's where the emphasis needs to be. And I pray that we take advantage of that and really bring the beautiful teachings of our deen into our home and realize that every one of us has a responsibility. Nobody's off the hook. And alhamdulillah, there's so many resources now online that you can do that. I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal accepts our Ramadan. I pray Allah Azza wa Jal softens our hearts towards those that that have hurt, that we have caused hurt to, that they forgive us, and if somebody has done wrong to us, that Allah puts it in our hearts that we can forgive them and move on. That Allah Azza wa Jal make us a people of reconciliation in this time of Ramadan. May Allah Azza wa Jal accept our tawbah and our repentance for all of the mistakes that we've made in the past, and make us better believers and better people and better members of the family going into the future. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bil ayati wa al-Hakim. الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على أفضلهم وخاتم النبيين محمد الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الكريم بعد أن أقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. عباد الله رحمكم الله اتقوا الله. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد. Eid Mubarak to all of you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, bye, Internet.